Everyone. We'd like to start with the Indigenous recognition. We'd like to begin by acknowledging treaty territory of the Anishinaabe, which is defined within the Pre-Confederation Treaty known as the London Township Treaty of 1796. Throughout time, this region has also become the current home to the Haudenosaunee and Lenape nations. Moving on to completion and acceptance of the agenda, I'm assuming we had an opportunity to review the agenda, so someone prepared to move acceptance of that. Moved by Mayor Grantham, seconded by somebody I hope. Thank you very much. Seconded by Hadley and McAllister, I should say Councillor McAllister. All those in favor? Thank you very much. The previous, first of all, next is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Does anybody have any interest they need to disclose? With that, there's none. So we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was February 16, 2023. I'm also going to assume we have had a chance to review that. So someone prepared to move approval of that. Again, Councilor McAllister is moving it. Seconded by Tammy Brooks. Anything further? All those in favor? That matter is approved, and I'm remembering names so far, so I'm doing well. I'm quite happy about that. Next is a communication from City of London Council. Do you have just want to summarize what that is?
You have a letter in the package received from the City of London, March 8th, 2023, confirming that the recommendation of the LMCH Board to appoint Karen Hawk to the LMCH Board of Directors was approved by City Council. That was communicated to us since March 8th. So, welcome to the board.
Yeah, just on behalf of the board members, welcome. If it's your first time serving on a board, you'll pick it up, just take it slowly, move along. I can attest that everybody here is going to help, whether it's staff or board alike, and nothing. You can't do anything wrong here that we'll worry about, and we all cover for each other in terms of taking care of each other. So please feel that you can contribute in any way that you see best. And again, we're really happy to have you. You're the person we wanted, so we're happy the council went along with that. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything. They asked me to do that, and I did say something, but you may want to. I don't know. You don't have to. No, you're good. Nothing at all about my bad haircut. That's what you said at the interview. You said
no, I didn't say bad hair.
No, you said I needed more hair.
I said I'd give you some shots.
That's what she said. See, she's got it. Also has a very good memory. So it's great to have you here. That was one of the high points for me. I thought it was great that in addition to being so knowledgeable, you had a sense of humor, which is really good. Moving on, I don't think we have any delegations. We have no presentations. We do have 2 in-camera items which appear on the agenda. So I'm going to have someone move to go into in camera on those 2 matters. Moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by Mayor Grantham. All those in favor? All right. What do we have to do now to receive them?
Yeah, I'm happy to move receipt of the reports and report out that progress was made.
Thank you very much. And somebody prepared to second that? Councillor McAllister, all those in favor? Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the consent agenda items. The first one is the CEO report, and this is to receive. So maybe we'll get you to present, and then we'll get a mover and second we're going to receive. You're on for everything tonight, Paul.
Yep. Gary was here to help.
Yeah.
All right. So the CEO report. You want an update on that one? Sorry.
Sure.
All right. Just pull it up.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
If you have anything to add, or we can just go to questions. It's completely up to you.
No, I think just I think the highlight. Couple of just quick highlights. For the CEO report is we provided a copy of the health and homelessness summit report that has been taking place the last few months in the City of London, just reaffirming that staff at LMCH have been fully engaged in this process. It's an important document for LMCH because it starts to address some of the challenges we have with the supports that our high need tenants receive, and sort of, if you look at where the areas they highlight about creating standards and data and metrics and workplace development, those are things that we have, already discussed with our community partners as challenges that they face. So I think it will go a long way to improve the supports that some of our tenants receive in the community. And I think also importantly, it recognizes and sort of, or implies that, LMCH is not the single source of housing for high needs households, and that there are other options required. And I think that's a critical step in improving the tenancies within our buildings and addressing some of the issues raised by our tenants, as we heard in the recent town halls. But I think that's a really important acknowledgement in there as well. So we will be attending sessions later in March to talk and continue that process and try to be engaged in that conversation as we move forward. The other thing to note is Reimagine Southdale continues to move forward. We have resubmitted our second round of feedback on the site plan approval, which is the final approval step we need from the city. So we anticipate that we'll be getting final approval in mid-March for that. And we continue working with community partners to sort of lay out the ground floor community spaces and sort of keep engaging with them on how we can sort of make sure this building is working to address the needs we've identified. And those are the two big updates from the CEO report.
Great, thank you. So I think what I'll do is get someone to move and second receipt, and then we'll just go to questions. So, Kara, why don't you move it? We'll give you your first action. Okay? Just say I'm prepared to move it.
I'm prepared to move it.
Brilliant, brilliant. Much better than it took the deputy mayor a year to learn how to do that. So this is really good. So I'm going to let him second it. Would you be prepared to second it, deputy mayor?
Yes, I am. It took me a year to learn where the mute button was on a Zoom meeting too.
So it's been seconded. So now we'll go to any questions or comments from anyone. I just have one comment. I think the continued movement towards an understanding of what LMCH does, what we're supposed to do, who we're supposed to service is a good thing. And I think it's actually starting to have an effect. And I think, when I talk to people now, more broadly, they seem to understand that. They understand the challenge and what we'd like to do moving forward. So it's good to hear that moving forward, that's what people are sort of understanding and realizing, and all the number of times that happens and the number of times people say it, I don't think you can sort of overestimate the impact of that. It's not just us, but I think other people realize it now and certainly want to help and be supportive. So that's the one comment I would make out of what you said. So I really appreciate staff being involved in that and continuing to monitor that process. And I thank our political partners and supporters for continuing to be involved in that process. The work couldn't be more important. We all know about what we need on the ground. It's not easy work. It's not magical. It's not going to happen overnight. And so I give them credit for working on it and moving forward. And I don't think people should be overly critical or negative about moving that sort of ball forward, even if it's slow movement. It's going to be good. Anything else from anyone? Deputy Mayor?
Just very briefly, and I'm going to echo everything that you said, Phil. Absolutely correct. I think it is really, really important that there's a broader community understanding developing that LMCH is not a transitional housing provider. We are not a shelter. At the end of the day, we are a landlord first, rent geared to income housing provider for those who need an affordable housing option. That has to be our focus. Often in the past, members of the public, people who have appeared before council, including when Chair Squire was a member of council, came to us looking for us to provide social service supports. And that is not our primary role. And the growing recognition that This whole community response needs to include a variety of housing, from shelter options to transitional supportive housing, like the Inwell model, to the geared to income model that London Housing provides, London Middlesex Housing. I don't want to leave out Mayor Grantham's communities there, as well as those more percentage of average market rates that are beyond the RGI reach, but are affordable to a different demographic. It's really, really important that we stay focused on our role as a board, but I think it's important that the community understands what our role is too. And I think there's a growing understanding of that. So feeling very supportive. And of course, thanks to Paul and the team for being participants in this rather unique situation where for the first time ever, we've had partners at the table who have never been part of this discussion. London Health Sciences Centre and St. Joe's Hospital, the London Development Institute, representing the people who build in this city, having those healthcare and private sector partners for the first time is really important. And I think there's going to be some continuing discussions about how some of those partners also partner with us at LMCH to make sure that we're providing the best experience for our tenants too. So lots and lots of work to do. You're absolutely right, Chair, that this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be slowly moving the ball up the field yard by yard, but we're moving in the right direction and we just want to keep it going that way.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, there being none, then we will move, we had this moved and seconded, so all those in favor of receipt of the report. That report is received. Next is team favorite, the vacancy management update report. I just gave you a little plug there before you. I hope you recognize that.
All right, and thank you through the chair.
You are welcome.
A few quick updates or just an overview of the report. As you know, our vacancy management has two key components, where the property services team does restoration to make the unit rent ready, and our tenant services team works to get that unit leased up to an applicant from the wait list in the City of London. So really pleased to see that strong performance continues in the tenant services side. The average number of days to rent and commit a unit is 13 days. And considering that, in addition to sort of calling the tenant and booking the appointment to see the unit, we also need to collect information to calculate rent geared income and make sure they're eligible. 13 days is pretty good turnaround for the team, so they continue to be able to allocate the units, which tells us when they come to tenant services, they're in a good state of repair, and you know, tenants are really happy with what we're providing. We remain challenged with reducing the number of overall vacancies that are in the rent ready status. We've consistently over the last two periods hit 35 or more units. So we are hitting above our target of 30 units per month, but we're just in a situation where we have a backlog, so it can take a little while to work through. We meet on this on a weekly basis, and we're projecting 60 days out. So in addition to the units, so if they returned, I think it was 35 units in the month of February to a rent ready status, they were probably working on a total of 60 units at that time. So there's a lot of work going on in some of these units that they're not maybe going to be ready till next month. So we run on a 60-day forecast. And so we have been successful the last two periods to sort of hit that target. We've sort of minor issues that we're working through. We continue to work with our vendors. We've introduced a couple of new vendors, and we're introducing a couple more right now just to improve our vendor pool, and that's working, but it takes a little time to give them the volume that we know that they can deliver on. And we are also running into some issue, as noted in the report, with some of the flooring in our units. John. Where's the unit report?
Go ahead.
So just the final note is that we do have some flooring and related material that has asbestos containing materials based on our hazardous materials assessments that we did in the fall. So where the flooring needs to be replaced, those units, we're working through a process to get some pricing with an accredited provider to remove those materials. In the past, we were doing floor over floor. So we would just put something on top of that, and our standard has changed because that doesn't last as long. So we're just taking a pause on probably about 10 or so units in the system that just, we need to get our vendor in place, get some fixed pricing. And so we can do this efficiently as well as safely. So there's a few units in play there. And we do have some vacancies in the maintenance repair position, which is sort of reducing our ability to do that sort of last minute things in the unit. So we have a whole bunch of issues we're working through, but I think the key point is they're delivering on the target. And we will sort of continue to push forward and reduce these vacancies.
Can I just ask you, when you say we're hitting the target we want per month, how's that gonna impact that number that we see every month? Like, is that gonna
Well,
in itself reduce that number? Or how
in
does it work?
itself, so we see on average turnover, we'll say 30 units a month.
Okay.
So if we're hitting 30 units, we're treading water, we're staying put. Our objective is to hit 35 or more is really what we're trying to push for. So we have 3 portfolios trying to get 12 units out of each moving forward. So that's where we'll see the increase of that 5 or 6 units each period. And then depending on the nature of the state of repair of the units we get back, there may be months where we're able to push more through. To be frank, the state of repair we're getting a lot of units in is extremely poor, where there's structural issues that need to be addressed, extensive holes in the walls, missing cabinetry, very extreme. So that is compounding the timeline and sort of just, there's not very many units that we can turn over in a few days. Everything is taking much higher than we would expect. So we will continue to work on the 35 plus. You will see improvements. And I just flagged that, we are seeing an increase of eviction orders and things coming from landlord tenant board, and those units are usually the most extreme. So we will receive over the next few weeks a large number of units that are in extremely poor condition. So we'll have to determine how we manage those. Those things impact the timeline. And as noted and requested by the board, we'll provide a more in-depth vacancy report at the next meeting, which we anticipate in May.
Great, thank you very much for just that additional information. Just wanted to draw that out. So can we get someone to move and second receipt of this report? Did I do that already, or is it? No.
That's one quick question, Chair.
We'll move it and second it, and then you can ask the
Okay,
question.
got it.
So let's get that
Okay.
done. Mover, seconder, moved by Tammy, seconded by Counselor. Sorry, I just called him Counselor. Sorry. I apologize. I'll call you many different things. Don't get worried about it. All right, so it's moved and seconded. So now we'll go to questions. Mayor Grant.
The 3 charts, I know they're all important, but it's the most important one if we're looking at this. The age and active restoration,
That's the one that we
That's
need
one
to
that
focus
you want-
on now, right?
Okay.
So you'll note that I started adding color code
Yeah.
just to sort of see where we're on target. You'll note that, earlier in 2022, we had some red zone for the tenant services.
Right.
So I'm trying to identify what is the number that matters. And for me, the age of the units in active restoration is the one we need to manage. So we've worked through the age of units that we were releasing, and that's managed, but now that's the one to keep track of.
and just follow up, Chair. If I
Go
may.
ahead.
I know the number is going to be smaller. Is there any difference in the county? Are you able to turn them around quicker, slower? They're about the same.
Proportionally, probably around the same. It's a lower unit
Yeah,
count in the
lower
county,
unit number, right?
but we do get some extreme units.
Okay.
So you're not immune in the county based on location. So it's really tenant specific, right? So that's what we find drives it.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
not a problem. Any further questions, comments? There being none? There goes the cat. Oh, definitely. I have the same problem at home. So we'll, all those in favor of receipt of that report? And that matters, Pat. Thank you very much for the report, and particularly on the management of the vacancies. It's very clear where you're trying to go and that you're having success. So thank you. We'll now go on to reports and business. The first is the Finance Committee reports. There are a number of reports that have to be gone over. I know that the chair of the committee is not here, so do you have any introduction to those items? Perhaps we can put items 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the floor. And we can get those moved and seconded if I can. And then if someone will move them and second, and then we can have discussion. Moved by Councilor McAllister, seconded by Kara. And so we'll just do all of those reports. If you could go over those now. I guess you're doing them this also, Paul? All of those reports?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. So through the chair, just highlight on the KPI report that rent arrears continue to be an issue. You'll recall conversations in 2022 about rental arrears increasing and the potential impact on the revenue collection of LMCH that had us making a change in practice on creating an allowance for current tenant arrears as sort of doubtful. So our bad debt allowance has increased as a result of these arrears, and they continue to increase. That said, there is a focused effort in tenant services to work with tenants to try to collect this. So we're seeing sort of through the time we see progress on some accounts as some accounts get worse. So I think it's a little overwhelming and relates to just RGI eligibility and folks going to market rent and the efforts required to get their subsidies returned, and compounded by the length of time at landlord tenant board for some tenants who are just not paying their rent and sort of have other behavioral issues and are sort of on their way out, but the process needs to follow its so that's the one highlight on that, I think, for the KPI report to bring your attention to. In terms of the Q4 2022 financial results, so these are the interim unaudited financial results. One of the things just to note, we have a favorable result of $12 to the budget, and essentially we did have higher than forecasted revenue. That was favorable. We offset that with an increase to bad debt to sort of identify that revenue which we didn't think we'd collect. So you'll see a note of write-offs on the second bullet point under that, just to sort of say that 900,000 is offset by 500,000 in bad debt. So I think just the keynote is there, we did have increased expenditures in many areas of almost $1 million in many areas. So we're working to sort of, as we move into 2023, to better control expenditures, but many of those are related to unit turnover. So it's a challenge for us if we're going to push on unit turnover and make readies. It will have a cost impact on us, so we just need to balance those things out as we go in. But most things, there was increases in snow removal, cleaning, and materials and services for turnovers. So I think we definitely worked within our budget, spent everything we had available to do the work in our communities, and we'll continue to manage that as we move into 2023. I think the rest I will just leave for questions. We have the capital report and we have an updated facility condition index report that lists our facility condition index overall as, I don't want to characterize that. I can never find it in the report. It is fair.
I think it was fair.
It is fair. So that's an improvement over the last report of our asset management plan. And that's as a result of the investments we put in, refining what repairs we need to do. So there's certain things in our original estimates that we don't need to do anymore. And just keeping in mind the facility condition index is a function of the cost of repairs as well as the value of the building. So as the values of our buildings are adjusted up for inflation, the FCI goes down. So we have to just make sure that it's not a false improvement in that context. So we'll continue to just work through and make sure that all the capital investments we are doing are having a favorable impact on FCI.
Thank you. So any questions on those reports? They're just for receiving information. Tammy, go ahead.
All right, great, sure. So I just have a question around rental arrears. So, are you finding that, of course, through COVID, a lot of people were impacted financially, whether in RGI or not, but are you finding that those rental arrears are comparable to pre-COVID? And would you, I guess I'm kind of thinking like, are we gonna run into a continued problem with the cost of living? And maybe are people not paying their rent because of the high cost of living? And will that continue to impact people not paying their rent, I guess? Like, are we seeing a common trend that we should be aware of?
Through the chair, I'll start and then I think I'll ask Andrea to sort of correct me where I'm wrong. She has more detail, the profiles of the tenancies that sort of we're working on are those folks who are struggling to complete their annual eligibility review for RGI. So we have a 10 to 15 or 20% turnover in our units over the last few years. We've really got 20% of our tenants who don't know what an annual review process is. Many of our tenants are well versed in the process and what information you need to provide and how to engage with us in that. There's a group of folks and an increasing group of folks that are not being responsive to the annual eligibility review requirements that are set out in the legislation. So it can be quite administratively burdensome and complicated for the tenants, and we acknowledge that. So while we didn't do annual reviews, I think in 2021, we introduced them as a requirement for 2022 again, and we also require now, so there's been some changes in that program that requires income tax filing. I think there's a perfect storm of complexity for a vulnerable population, not able to understand what they need to do, even though we're reaching out to try to support them. So that sort of creates the revenue uncertainty piece that we created the bad debt allowance for, because if we come back and we work with them 8 months later and get their subsidy restored, their rent rate goes from say $750 down to $150. That's $600 over 10 months. That isn't real revenue. That's $6,000 that comes off the top, right? So there's that group of folks. And then there's the folks, there's a behavior where people are being taken to the landlord tenant board. We file an application and we let them know that we're moving forward for eviction. They will stop paying rent. So then we have a 12 to 18 month zero rent collection piece. And those are sort of the two main drivers. And there is some folks that have, income security issues and balancing paying rent, buying groceries, doing all the things they do is complicated. But a lot of those folks talk to us. So, they have the awareness to sort of say, and try to work through a solution. So I don't think they're as prevalent as an issue in the sort of the ongoing accumulative rent arrears, because we've always had that. And I would share, I reviewed a report from 2012, which said that our rental arrears at that time were $120,000. So we are now 10 years later, and we're 1.2. So there's some fundamental shifts in the environment there that really, and that is the common experience across most local housing corporations. So folks that are sort of owned by the municipality, like Toronto Community Housing and Kingston, Frontenac, and Ottawa, we're seeing the same trends in our arrears and things like that. And we're all trying to sort out, how do we manage that down, and investing in sort of working with the tenants, but trying to figure out what that means financially for us. It's $400,000 in revenue uncertainty. Do we spend that money in repairs and risk going over budget and putting the city in a bad position? Or so we sort of managing that piece. So I don't know if Andrea, I've misspoken or fully spoken to the issue.
Yeah, no, through the chair,
Go ahead.
I don't think I would add anything. I think that that's really, as I've gone through the files and my team have started to try to address and work on reducing the rent arrears, that's predominantly what we've seen. It's been individuals that are just new in the last couple of years. And as Paul had mentioned, it's sort of this perfect storm of the requirement that was put in place by the province to now have everybody provide us with a notice of assessment. And just having individuals that previously, if you were on Ontario Works or Ontario Disability, that was never a requirement. So there's a number of people that are just not used to having to do that. We run tax clinics, and I think I've mentioned that in one of our previous meetings to try and help facilitate individuals getting their taxes completed so that they can complete the annual review with us. But that's really where we're seeing the majority of it, as Paul mentioned, but tenants that are dealing with food scarcity issues and income issues will usually come and see us. We'll connect with CRW and we'll try to support them and do some referrals or find ways to assist. But that's not the individuals that we're dealing with.
I know it's a very complex issue, so when you're dealing with rental arrears and like I said, just like the nature of our environment right now, the cost, I was kind of like, some people are forced with decisions, so I just wasn't sure if that been kind of raised. So thank you.
Any further questions, comments? Did someone, sorry,
John.
oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Through you, Chair. And sorry, my camera keeps freezing, so hopefully someone's got some good photos for memes or whatever. But thanks everyone for all the information. I guess my only curiosity is, have there been discussions with the province explaining, the situation, the dynamics of this, how much the arrears have increased, how many barriers this has raised? Has this been raised with counterparts at the provincial level, just to notify them that these are some of the troubles that are happening? This has got to be a similar issue across housing providers. I'm assuming across the province, it's not unique to London, correct?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Have there been any steps taken, have any communication, I guess, at the provincial level, just to identify and flag some of the issues that are going on?
I'm not sure if this was identified to the provincial level. I know that we are talking internally as the local housing corporations across Ontario to sort of understand the impact. But I don't know of any efforts to communicate that collectively to the province. I mean, the irony of the issue is that this is part of a set of steps taken by the province to simplify the RGI administration process. So in a theoretical model pre-COVID and dealing with less vulnerable tenants, this is a logical step. To have notice of assessment as one single source of information. It just, the way it was operationalized and the double whammy of COVID and not doing any reviews for years just had, I think, an unintended consequence that we've just been realizing for the last like 5 to 6 months collectively. So I think we will, we meet quarterly with local housing corporations across the province. So I can inquire as to whether we've done any outreach, and we do have some meetings coming up with provincial counterparts, so we could determine if there's anything else we could do for this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Paul. I think that it would be great if collectively all the housing providers could pen a letter and have something, together that speaks to that this is a common issue across all municipalities, not unique to London. And then potentially just offering a few options or alternatives, like, for example, maybe for those tenants where it's, it's maybe assumed that there's no change to income, they can sign a declaration instead of a tax return or whatever the case may be. Just, I'm sure with all the bright minds in the room, there's some way to think of something. So not only identifying the issue to the province, but just letting them know of some potential solutions that might, alleviate some of the issues that are happening would probably be helpful. But yeah, I just was curious about that. So if you could look into that, that'd be great. I don't know. Do I need to make a motion for that, Chair?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I think,
Thank you.
Paul can either report back at the next board meeting or earlier by email to all the board members. I don't think a motion's required to find out what is happening and where we are on that. I understand. I think Paul understands what the questions. I don't know, just to follow up, is there some kind of provincial association? Or is this an informal group where you get together?
Right, so there is a provincial, so local housing corporations meet under an umbrella that's by a sector group. There is a provincial Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association that meets. The complexity on this is that it is typically the service manager, which should be the City of London, or the municipalities that sort of govern the program with all the providers, that is at the table with the province on these decisions. Not exclusively, but those are the folks that are required to give the direction to us on how we do this. So they're there at the table. So I can also just check to see if there's any discussions active at the service manager level here at the City of London, to see if there's something I could sort of tag onto there.
Great. So Paul will do that and he'll report back either through email or at the next board meeting. If you could just make a note of that, that would be great. Any other questions, comments? There being none, and these are the reports for just receipt. So all those in favor? Thank you, that's passed. So we're now going to go to the Finance Committee reports for board approval. The first is staff report 2023-17, which is the City of London Insurance Program report and invoice. There was a report on that. Any further comments on that? Paul?
No, I think just highlight that this is a program that reduces our cost of insured claims for LMCH, and it is managed by the City of London, who managed our risk profile, and we have been participating in this SURF program for a number of years. Our risk manager at the City of London recommends we continue in this program, and we're looking for just the approval to pay this year's fees as it is above the my sign off guidelines.
Great, thanks. So can I get a mover and seconder for that? Rantham, thank you. Councilor McAllister seconding. All those in favor, or if I should say any questions, sorry about that. Any questions on that? There being none, all those in favor? We'll go to staff report 2023-18, which is the contract award for roofing replacement at Kent Street. Anything to add, Paul, on that one?
No, through the chair, the report is fairly straightforward. It is another one of our identified capital projects. I think just to highlight that the cost of this was greater than anticipated because of the construction of the original roof. And we're going to have to take some extra remediation for potential asbestos containing materials as we do the project. And that's already been factored into the revised quote, and just looking for your approval so we can get this work started.
Thank you. Somebody prepared to move and second that one. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor McAllister. All those in favor? Are there any questions, first of all? No? All those in favor? Sorry, I don't want to rush anybody, but. No. All right. We're now going to the HRCG reports for approval, and I didn't know if the chair, oh, sorry. Oh, he froze. He was voting and froze. See, I've got John now where he's going to vote in favor of everything I suggest with his hands on. Did the chair of that committee wish to make any comment on those reports, or they just, I know your name wasn't on them, but do you wish to make any comment? Gary? That's your committee, is it not, HR?
Yeah, sorry. No, I was trying to unmute there. No, I don't have any further comments. No, other than it's pretty straightforward there.
All right, so there's a number of policies there. What we'll do is move them and second them as a package, and then there can be any questions. So somebody prepared to move their approval. Moved by Tammy Brooks, seconded by Tara. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on that package of 4 policies? There being none, then all those in favor? That is passed. Thank you very much. I have no business. I have no business being here. I have no new business or inquiries, so I just need a motion for chairman. Unfortunately, I may be out of here in time to help my wife with the dishes, but
Okay, so can I
things
confirm
happen.
that reports that were just approved? Because I think there's 4 policy reports.
yes.
And one other report on the work plan. I just didn't know
Where was that one? I'm sorry, I
if
had 4.
2023-19, I just don't know.
Yep, that was approved. Yep,
Okay,
yep,
I
you
am
approved that.
just auditing your work, sir.
That's fair. All right,
Thank
so
you.
I need someone to move adjournment. Arrow's moving adjournment. Councilman Castro has been a great mover and seconder tonight. Seconds it. All those in favor? That's passed. Always easy. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you all soon, if not at committees elsewhere. Thank you. Thanks,
Look
everyone.
forward to being back in person next month. So see you all then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.